I have been getting questions regarding how do you keep the Sabbath and keep your job. Not everyone cares about this, but those who are genuinely interested in their salvation, those who truly wants to worship the Most High, they're very concerned as to those that really want to keep the Sabbath. There's a lot of people that say all kinds of stuff that don't really mean it. But those that truly want to keep the Sabbath, they keep asking, how do I keep the Sabbath this way and still keep my job? How do I keep the Sabbath this way and, and still go to school? So that's what this is. That's why, that's the purpose of this particular presentation. How you can keep the Sabbath and keep your job at the same time. So before I give you some information on how you can keep the Sabbath and keep your job or your school or whatever, before that, I have to let you know. You see, you have to understand. You have to understand that right now, you see, I'm trying to find out the best way to put this to make it very simple and clear. It's not supposed to be easy. This is not supposed to be easy. See, you have to begin to get rid of the Christian mindset. The Christian mindset that says that all you need to do is believe and everything is fine. And give God a little bit of money and you will get back a lot of money. You need to get rid of that Christian mindset. Okay? Let me read something for you. I'm going to read, I will read this from, let's see, let me read this from Revelation. Please, if you don't mind, if you can also pick up your Bible and read from Revelation. I want to show you something. Check this out in Revelation, Revelation chapter 2. Look at this. This is what Christ said in Revelation chapter 2. It says this from verse 9. This is Revelation chapter 2 verse 9. And this is Christ talking to the church. Christ, our Savior, Yeshua HaMashiach, our Savior, speaking to one of the churches. Now look at what he said to them. Revelation chapter 2. I'm going to read from verse 9. Please get your own Bible and read also. I'm reading from New King James. You can read it from King James or whatever. So, Revelation chapter 2 verse 9. This is what Christ said. I know your works, tribulation and poverty, but you are rich. I know. I'm going to, because there's something in parentheses, I'm going to remove that part that say I know you're rich, because it's in parentheses, meaning that it was added. Okay, so it says, I know your works, tribulation and poverty, and I know the blasphemy of those who say they are Jews and are not, but are of synagogue of Satan. Verse 10, look at verse 10, Revelation chapter 2 verse 10. Do not fear any of those things which you are about to suffer. Indeed, the devil is about to throw some of you into prison, that you may be tested, and you will have tribulation 10 days. Be faithful until death, and I will give you the crown of life. So, Yeshua, please read this yourself. I just read Revelation chapter 2, verse 9 and verse 10. So he's in verse 10, Revelation 2:10, Christ is saying to the church or the congregation that they will be thrown into prison, they will be tested. The point is that this is not supposed to be easy. You need to understand this. This isn't easy. In Matthew chapter 7, verse 13 and 14. Matthew 7, 13 and 14. You are going to read Christ saying that narrow is the way. Narrow is the way that leads to life. Narrow is the way that leads to life. Broad is the way that leads to destruction. And he said that very few people will find that way or travel on that way that leads to life. So this is not supposed to be easy. The Most High God will test us. He will test you to see what you will do. This isn't supposed to be easy. So if you think that, again, you have to get rid of the Christian mindset. If you think you can keep your job and have everything you need and keep the Sabbath and everything will be perfect, then you don't understand the Bible. If you have any interest of making it into the kingdom of heaven, you will be tested. Your faith will be tested. This, you have to, so that's the thing. It's not supposed to be easy, because I see people saying, I remember a while ago, I got a comment, somebody saying, oh, this is too complicated. It's not from God. It's too complicated, and then you see these pastors that will say, how are you going to keep a job? Why would God make this so difficult? That means you don't get it. According to the scriptures, you will be tested. You will go through poverty. You will go through all kinds of stuff. You will be tested. And most people will not want to go through those kind of troubles. That's why the way that leads to life is very narrow, with ups and downs, with stones, with bumps. It's not a smooth road. And very few people would travel on that. Very few people will travel on that path, because most people like comfortability. Like Christianity, very comfortable. You go to church whenever you want. You do whatever you want. So that's not how you're going to get into the kingdom of heaven. Look at the apostles. Most of them was killed. The early followers of Christ, most of them was killed. They went through poverty. Are you prepared to do that? Are you prepared for that? Are you prepared to give your life for Christ? Yeshua said that whoever wants to save his life will lose it. Whoever loses his life will find it. Okay, so this isn't supposed to be easy. So for those that try to say that, how do I keep this Sabbath and be able to go to school? How do I, keep this Sabbath? And you can't keep this Sabbath and keep a job. I keep hearing these things from people. So it's not supposed to be easy. According to the scriptures, it's not supposed to be easy. And the Most High will test us. So what you need to understand is that I'm going to say this, and I may end up, of course, as I go along, as the Spirit reveals, as the scripture comes out, I'm going to quote scriptures. So I will recommend that you get a pen and write the scriptures down, so that you can read it yourself. You can read all these places. You have to understand this. What I'm about to tell you right now, or share with you right now, is very deep. Very, very deep. Eventually, I'm going to get to the part of how you can, the kind of businesses or job you can do and still be able to keep the Sabbath. I'm going to give you that information at the end of this video, or at the end of, so bear with me. But I need to let you know, I need to share some information with you. What I'm about to share with you right now, it's not really out there. It's not really out there. This is a very, very, very important information that I'm about to give you right now, before I get to the part about how to, the kind of job or businesses or whatever you can do, how to keep the Sabbath and keep your job. I'm going to get to that part. But first, I have to share something with you. You see, the Sabbath has to do with the mark of the beast. Now, I know that you're familiar You are most likely familiar with the part that says in Revelation that whoever doesn't have the mark of the beast will not be able to buy or sell, right? I'm sure you're familiar with this. The Sabbath has to do with the mark of the beast. The Sabbath has to do with the mark of the beast. The Sabbath is the mark of God. And you will see this in Exodus chapter 31. Exodus 31. Like as I said, you may want to get a pen and write these places down and then read it. Or you can pause this video and read these places as I go along. Actually, that may be much better. You can pause and read them as we go along. So if you read Exodus chapter 31, Exodus 31, Exodus, the book of Exodus, chapter 31, if you read from verse 12 to verse 18, you are going to be reading about the Sabbath. What the Most High said about the Sabbath in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18 is very important, because in that place, he said that the Sabbath is an everlasting covenant. The Sabbath is an everlasting covenant between him and his people. So he also said that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. God, our creator, the I am that I am, the ancient of days, the creator of the heaven and the earth, say that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. So if you are keeping the Sabbath, God said that that Sabbath is a sign that identifies that you belong to him, because you know that a lot of people claim to belong to God. A lot of people claim to know God. So God is saying that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. Now, that word there, sign, is the same thing as a mark. So you have to do the research. Go look up in a regular dictionary, in a strong concordance. Go to a strong concordance and look up the word sign or mark. If you go to that Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, and look up that word sign, the Most High said that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. If you look that word up, sign, it's the same thing. It's basically almost the same. Look it up yourself, okay? So what the Most High was really saying is that the Sabbath is a mark. Like it's a sign. If I'm keeping the Sabbath, it's a sign that identifies me as one of his own. If you're observing the Sabbath. So the Sabbath is like a mark on God's people. Those that are observing the Sabbath, that Sabbath is a mark of God on them. That's the mark of God. Now, if you want to see what I'm saying, look up go to Google. If you don't have a dictionary, type in definition of sign or definition of mark. Do your own little research. You see that sign and mark are the same thing. What the Bible translators did is that they came to Exodus 31 and they used the word sign. They come to Revelation chapter 13, they use the word mark. So the Most High said that we must keep the Sabbath, and it's an everlasting covenant. And that those that keep the Sabbath, they are the ones that belongs to him. And that Sabbath that they keep is the mark that identifies those people as the people of the Most High. Anyone that keeps the Sabbath, that Sabbath is a mark on that person that identifies that they belong to the Most High. But also, you do remember that the Most High said that we're not supposed to walk on the Sabbath day, right? Remember, we're not supposed to walk. Oh my goodness, I wish that the Most High will open your eyes for you to understand what I'm explaining. I'm afraid that some of you may not understand what I'm explaining to you right now. I fear that you may not understand this. And if there's any distraction around you, try to focus, because I'm sharing a very important information with you right now. So, the Most High said in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to Him. Okay? That's what He said. And He also told us not to walk on the Sabbath. We're not supposed to buy or sell on the Sabbath, according to the scriptures, according to the book of Jubilees, chapter 50. Jubilees, chapter 50, Amos, the book of Amos. You look at these places, we are not supposed to buy or sell on the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the day of rest. But notice, please, notice that we're not supposed to go to our jobs on the Sabbath, right? We're not supposed to do that, right? It's important to keep that in mind. We're also not supposed to buy or sell on the Sabbath. So these are things that are associated with the Sabbath, which the Most High basically said that the Sabbath is a mark that identifies those that belongs to Him. The Sabbath is God's mark. Go to Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, and look up that word, sign. In Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to 18, that word sign also means mark. God's Sabbath is His mark. Now, that brings us to the mark of the beast. What is the mark of the beast? First of all, who is the beast? Because today, people talk a lot about the mark of the beast. You hear about the mark of the beast. People like to talk about the 666. People say that you will receive a mark on your forehead, in your hand. People like to say these things. So, but nobody is really saying who is the beast. You see, the Christian church have given people impression that the beast is some kind of a man that will come and become the Antichrist, that's the beast. No, that's not what the Bible says. Now you're going to have to read Daniel chapter 2 in order for you to understand who the beast is. The book of Daniel have already told us exactly what the beast is. You need to read Daniel chapter 2. Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. These are places you will specifically see what the beast is. Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. In Daniel chapter, these two places, please, if you want to know about the mark of the beast, you must read the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, because that's where it tells you who the beast is, what the beast is. So you need to read Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, the whole chapters, the whole chapter of Daniel chapter 2 and the whole chapter of Daniel chapter 7. You need to read these two places, because when you read the book of Daniel chapter 2, you're going to read about four kingdoms, four different kingdoms that will rule the world, beginning with the Babylonian Empire. The Babylonian Empire, that was the first kingdom. After the Babylonian Empire came the Medes and the Persians. The Medes and the Persians, that was the second kingdom. After that came the Greeks with Alexander the Great. The Greeks. If you want to learn more about the Greeks and how the Greeks and the first of all, let me be more specific in the scriptures. According to Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 2. In Daniel chapter 2, you will read about you are going to read about four kingdoms, 4 different world empires that will rule the world. Four empires that will rule the whole world. The first was the Babylonian Empire, which you will read in the book of Daniel, in that chapter 2. When the Babylonian Empire fell, the second kingdom came, which is the Medes and the Persians. The Medes and the Persians. And you're going to read about these people in the book of Ezra, beginning of the book of Ezra and the book of Nehemiah. These are where you're going to read about the Medes and the Persian Empire. Okay? After the Medes and the Persian came the third kingdom that will rule the world. The third one was the Greeks. The Greeks was the third kingdom with Alexander the Great. Okay? And they ruled the whole world. You're going to read about this in the book of First Maccabees. Read the book of First Maccabees. Start from chapter 1. The book of Maccabees. First Maccabees, you're going to read about, starting from chapter 1, you read about the Greeks, how the Greeks ruled the world. And then after that came the fourth kingdom, the fourth one, and that was the Roman Empire. And the fourth kingdom is supposed to rule the world until the second coming of Christ. Okay? So those beasts, these world empires, these world kingdoms, these are the beasts that the Bible talks about. The beast is not a human being. The beast is a nation of people. Kingdom, nation of people, kingdom that will rule the whole world. That's what the beast is. Okay? You already know you already know, so you read these places, Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7. You're going to read about this world empires that will rule the world. According to the Bible, according to Daniel chapter 7, these empires that will rule the world, they are the beasts that the Bible talks about. The beast that the Bible speaks of is not a human being. It's a nation of people. It's not one man. Rather, it's a nation of people. The first beast was the Babylonian Empire. The second beast was the Medes and the Persians Empire. The third beast was the Greek Empire with Alexander the Great. The fourth beast was the Romans. And according to the book of Daniel, the fourth kingdom, that fourth beast was going to rule the world until Christ comes back the second time. So that's who the beast is. That now leads us to, what is the mark of the beast? If according to the Bible, in all these places, you may want to roll this video back and listen to what I just explained and read all these places that I just quoted. If according to the Bible, the Roman Empire is the fourth kingdom, again, you need to read the book of Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, and then if you want to read about the third kingdom, which is the Greeks, start from First Maccabees chapter 1. First Maccabees chapter 1. And then after the Maccabean Empire, after them came, after the Greek Empire came the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire took over. After the Greek Empire fell, the Romans took over. And the Romans are the third kingdom that is supposed to rule the world. And they're supposed to rule the world until Christ comes back the second time. And we know that Christ have not come back yet. So the Romans are still ruling. Today, that Roman Empire are the Europeans. The Europeans are the Roman Empire of today. The Europeans are the Roman Empire of today. The European people, the Germans, the French, the Americans, the Spanish, these are all these European countries. These are the descendants of the Roman Empire, and they are still ruling. They are still ruling. If you look at the system in the world today, look at the medical system. It's called Western medical system. Look at the education system. It's called Western education system. Look at the government system, so-called democracy. It's a Western thing. Look at, so the whole world, look at Christianity. So you look at the fashion industry, the entertainment industry, who are controlling the world when it comes to all these things? The Europeans. So the Europeans are the descendant of the Roman Empire. And according to the Bible in Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 2, the Roman Empire will rule. That fourth kingdom, that fourth beast, will rule until Christ comes back. But it also says in Daniel chapter 2 that fourth beast will be divided. That fourth kingdom will be divided. So that's how you had the Roman Empire, and then you had the European Union, but they're all the same. It's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. It's kind of like the 12 tribes of Israel. There are 12 tribes, but they are still one people. So that's who the beast is. The beast are the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. The fourth one that will rule the world, that's who the beast is. That leads us, and today they are the Europeans. The Europeans are the descendant of the Roman Empire. They are still ruling the world right now. They are controlling the world. That's why you see them. They can go to anywhere, kill any president, and put their own puppet. They can do whatever they want. If you want to see why they do these things, if you want to see why the Europeans, have done the things they've done in the past, if you want to see these things, go and read the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. That's where you're going to read about the four kingdoms that will rule the world. The four kingdoms that will rule the world until from the time of the Babylonians till the second coming of Christ. There will not be any gap in between these four kingdoms. From the moment from that time of the Babylonian Empire to the second coming of Christ, these four kingdoms will rule the world. Right now, you and I right now, we are living within the fourth kingdom. The three kingdoms have already ruled. The Babylonians, the Medes and the Persians, and the Greeks have already ruled the world. Right now, the fourth kingdom, which is the last kingdom, is ruling the world right now, and they are the Europeans. So, and if you go to, I would like to also throw in at Second Maccabees. Look at Maccabees, actually, First Maccabees chapter 8. Chapter 8. If you read from chapter 8, Maccabees chapter 8, you are going to see how the Roman Empire took over the rulership of the world from the Greeks. How they defeated the Greeks and basically took over. How the Greeks was defeated and the Roman Empire took over. It's all documented in the book of Maccabees. Maccabees chapter 8. First Maccabees chapter 8. Or just start from chapter 1. Start from the beginning of First Maccabees and just read all the way. So when you begin to read from chapter 1 of First Maccabees, you are going to start reading about the Greeks. And then from there, when the Greeks fell, you're going to transition into the Romans. You're going to start reading about the Romans. So the Romans are ruling the world till this day. So if you don't, you can Google the book of Maccabees, because you may not have it in your Bible. The book of Maccabees is found in the 1611 King James. The original King James version, 1611 version of the King James, you will find the book of Maccabees. But in your regular Bible, the ones without the Apocrypha, you will not find the book of Maccabees. So you may want to Google the book of Maccabees and read these places that are quoted. So according to the Bible, the Roman Empire, who today, as of today, are now known as the Europeans. According to the Bible, they are the beast that the Bible speaks of. They are the beasts that the Bible speaks of. According to the Bible, again, you need to read Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. And then read all these other places that are quoted, places like, Maccabee. If you want to read about the Medes and the Persians, then you have to read the book of Ezra, the beginning of the book of Ezra and the beginning of the book of Nehemiah. You're going to see how the Medes and the Persians ruled the world. And then you come to the third kingdom, which is the Greeks. That means you will need to read the book of Maccabees, Maccabees chapter 1 from verse 1. You read the whole chapter and you will see, and then from there, eventually, if you continue reading in the book of Maccabees, you're going to come into how the Romans began to rule the world. And here we are till this day. The Romans are still ruling the world. They may have changed their names. They may have divided their countries, which is what it says in Daniel chapter 2, that they will be divided. So that's how you get to have France, Germany, America, Britain, Holland, Spain. The book of Daniel tells you that fourth kingdom will be divided, but they will still be strong and partially fragile. That's exactly what you have today with the European Union and all these other nations. So the Europeans of today are the beast that the Bible speaks of. That brings us to the question of what is the mark of the beast? If that's the case, what is the mark of the beast? Well, the mark of the beast is basically a counterfeit of the mark of God. Remember what I said in the beginning. According to the Bible in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to 18, God said that his Sabbath is a sign or a mark that identifies those that belongs to him. According to the Most High, in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to 18, the Sabbath is a sign. If you look up that word and you study it carefully, you see that it's also a mark. It's a sign or mark that identifies those that belongs to the Most High. So what the beast have done is that the beast have counterfeited the mark of God. How did the beast do this? If you go to Revelation chapter 13, Revelation chapter 13, you are going to read about the fourth kingdom. The Revelation chapter 13 deals with the fourth kingdom. Because at the time that John wrote the book of Revelation, the first kingdom have already ruled, which is the Babylonian Empire. They've ruled already. The Medes and the Persians, the second kingdom, have also ruled. The Greeks have also ruled. So as of the time of John the Revelator, when he was in the prison writing the book of Revelation, at that time, three kingdoms have already ruled. The Romans, which is the fourth kingdom, was now ruling. So in Revelation chapter 13, Revelation 13 is dealing with the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. Revelation chapter 13 was dealing with the fourth kingdom. And you and I, right now, are living within the fourth kingdom right now. We are living within the fourth kingdom. And the fourth kingdom, which is the fourth beast, is controlling the world. They are controlling the world, not in a good way, in a very bad way. So, like as I said, if you are familiar with what the Roman Empire or what the Europeans have done around the world, all the stuff they have done around the world, the slavery, the killing, the murdering, the raping, like this, everything they've done around the world, in Asia, the colonialism, them going around the world, colonizing everyone and, stealing and murdering and stealing natural resources and all this stuff that this fourth beast have done. Read the book of Daniel chapter 2 and you will see it. Very clear. Very, very clear. So the fourth kingdom basically counterfeited the mark of God. So if you read in Revelation chapter 13, you are going to be reading about the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. The fourth kingdom that will rule the world. Okay? In Revelation chapter 13, you will read about that fourth kingdom. And in Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. In Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. Revelation 13, verse 2. Remember that the book of Revelation is talking about the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. So, and that's the Europeans, because they're still ruling the world, and they will rule until Yeshua comes back, until Christ comes back. So, if you read in Revelation chapter 13, verse 2, it says, "Now the beast which I saw was like a leopard. His feet were like the feet of a bear, and his mouth like the mouth of a lion. The dragon gave him his power, his throne, and great authority." So this beast, according to the book of Revelation chapter 13, this beast, which we know today are the European people, these beasts get their power, their authority from Satan. Satan is the one that gave his power, his authority, and his throne to the fourth beast. That's why you see that most of the things that they do are godless. Look at their court system, godless. Look at their entertainment industry, godless. Look at their church system. Even their church system is godless because they don't believe in keeping the law. Everything that they do. So they get their power from Satan, according to Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. So what the fourth beast through Satan, and why would Satan give his power to the beast? Like it says in 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. 2 Corinthians 4:4 says that Satan is the god of this world. Satan is the god of this world. 2 Corinthians chapter 4, verse 4. It also says in Job chapter 9, verse 24, that the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. The earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. So what Satan did is that Satan gave his power, his throne, and authority to the fourth beast, which is today known as the European people. They are the fourth beast. So what they have done is that they have counterfeited the mark of God. Remember that God said, according to Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, Exodus 31, 12 to 18, the Sabbath is the mark of God. The Sabbath is the mark of the Most High God. What Satan and the beast have done is that they have counterfeited the mark of God. They made a counterfeit of God's mark. They made a counterfeit of the mark of God. That's what Satan have always done. Satan have always tried to counterfeit anything that the Most High tells us to do. When God tells us to do something, Satan will counterfeit that, and then he tries to deceive you to reject the original and begin to use the counterfeit. That's what Satan does. So the Sabbath is something that the Most High gave us, and the Sabbath is the mark of God, according to the book of Exodus chapter 31. So Satan counterfeited that mark. The thing is that you remember that the Most High said that whoever breaks the Sabbath should be killed. And the Sabbath is also an everlasting covenant. So Satan, through the Europeans, have counterfeited the mark of God. That's why I'm going to give you an example. For those of you who are feast keepers, if you do observe the feast, let me give you an example. In the book of Leviticus chapter 23. If you read in the book of Leviticus chapter 23, you are going to read about the feast days. The feast days like the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Feast of Tabernacle, the Feast of all these feasts, the Day of Atonement. These are holy days. Holy, set apart days of the Most High God. All his feast days are found in Leviticus chapter 23. Look at what Satan has done. Now, I'm going to try to show you something right now. Look at what Satan have done. Satan counterfeited those holy days. What do they call, what does Satan call his own days? Holiday. Holidays. That's why people will say to you, happy holidays. Happy holidays. So the Most High calls his own days holy. Holy days. Satan calls his own days holidays. So you see the similarity. It's a counterfeit of the holy days. So in the holy days of the Most High, according to Leviticus chapter 23, we have the Passover, we have the Sabbath. The Sabbath is the first one in Leviticus 23. We have the Sabbath, the weekly Sabbath, the Passover, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, the Day of Atonement, the Feast of Tabernacle. These are the feast of the Most High God. Satan have made a counterfeit of those feasts. That's how you have your Christmas, your Easter, which is a counterfeit, a fake version of Passover. It's your Easter. Easter is a fake, a counterfeit version of Passover. So Satan have counterfeited all the holy days of the Most High. And then he calls it holiday. Where does all this thing come from? From the Europeans. Christmas, Easter, New Year, July 4th, Thanksgiving. These are European holidays, right? And the whole world have pretty much adopted it. So you see, it's a counterfeit. But look at the name. In Leviticus 23, those days are called the holy days. Look at what Satan and his children call their own days. Holiday. That's why they wish you happy holidays. And within their holidays, which is fake, a counterfeit of the holy days of the Most High, what do they say? They have Christmas, New Year, New Year's Eve, July 4th, Thanksgiving, St. Patrick's Day, the Easter. These are pagan holidays because it's a counterfeit of the holy days of the Most High. Now, I spent a little bit of this time to use this as an example so that you can understand what I mean when I say that Satan and his children, who are the fourth kingdom, the Europeans, have counterfeited. They have counterfeited the holy day of the Most High, the Sabbath day. So, according to Exodus, remember, not according to me, read Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18. The Most High clearly said that the Sabbath is an everlasting covenant. He also said that the Sabbath is a sign. It's a sign that identifies those that belongs to him, or a mark. If you do your own research and look up that word, sign, in Exodus chapter 31, it's the same thing as a mark. Sign and mark is the same thing. God's Sabbath is a mark that identifies those that belongs to him. What Satan have done is that Satan have counterfeited that God's mark, which is the Sabbath. Satan have counterfeited the mark of God. So that's how you get to have Saturday worship and Sunday worship. That's how you ended up with Sunday worship and Saturday worship. This is a counterfeit of God's holy day. It's a counterfeit. It's not real. It's fake. It's the mark of the beast. Because if the Sabbath day is God's mark, according to Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to 18, then Sunday worship, Sunday and Saturday worship is also the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with 666 in your hand. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with microchip. This is one of the, in Revelation chapter 12, verse 9, it says that Satan have deceived the whole world. Satan have deceived the whole world. Today, people are running around and talking about how you're going to receive a microchip in your hand or in your forehead. That is absolutely nonsense. And I'm going to show it to you from the Bible right now. I'm going to show it to you from the Bible. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with a microchip that will be given you in your hand or in your forehead or on your credit card. Absolutely not. The Bible tells us what the mark of the beast is. The Bible clearly tells us that. So you need to don't follow these people in believing this nonsense. The Bible, if you want to learn anything about the beast or the mark of the beast, you have to go to the Bible. You got to go to your Bible if you want to learn anything about the mark of the beast. It doesn't make any sense to just be believing a fairy tale, a theory. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with a microchip that will be given you in your forehand or in your head. Absolutely not. And I'm going to show it to you from the Bible. The mark of the beast is Saturday and Sunday. Saturday and Sunday. Again, the Bible has shown us who the beast is. The beast is the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. This is according to the Bible. This isn't according to my thinking or what I think or what I feel. No, according to the Bible right here. According to your own Bible. This is the reason why I kept telling you, read Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. Take your time. The time that you will spend to be listening to music, watching TV, watching some useless thing, take your time and read these places. This is about your salvation. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with a microchip. The mark of the beast has everything to do with the Sabbath. The mark of the beast has everything to do with the Sabbath. But Satan will want you to be waiting for the day that somebody will want to give you a microchip. Absolutely not. The mark of the beast is all about the Sabbath. Read Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. That will tell you who the beast is. According to the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, the beast is the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. A nation of people who today are now known as the Europeans, the British, the Americans, the Germans, the French, the Belgians, the Irish. These are the Netherlands. These are the descendants of the Roman Empire. They are the beast according to the Bible. You need to read Daniel chapter. Why don't you pause this video right now and read Daniel chapter 2 and then read Daniel chapter 7 also, in order for you to understand what I'm talking about. So the beast is not some man that will come, some Superman that will come and claim to be Antichrist. Absolutely not. That is absolute nonsense. That's not biblical. The Bible tells you in the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7 what or who the beast is. So the beast is the nation. So you need to know that before you understand what the mark of the beast is. The mark of the beast is the counterfeit of God's mark, because the Most High has a mark. God has a mark, and God's mark is the Sabbath day. That is what he said in the book of Exodus chapter 31. Exodus chapter 31 verse 12 to verse 18. Exodus chapter 31 verse 12 to verse 18. Exodus 31, 12 to 18. You might want to pause this video right now and read those places also. Read it yourself, and you will see that the Most High said that his Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him forever. This is the reason why we are required that we must keep the Sabbath forever. It's a must. Not keeping the Sabbath is a death sentence. And if you don't keep the Sabbath, your soul will be destroyed. Read that place in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18. The Most High said that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. That's what he said in the book of Exodus. Now, if you look up that word, sign, it's the same thing as mark. If you look up the word sign, it's the same thing as mark. You can even go as far as looking it up in a dictionary. Even when you look it up in a dictionary, it's the same thing. The word sign and mark means the same thing. Now, the Bible translators was very clever. They may have done this intentionally or unintentionally. The Bible translations was clever because they came to Exodus chapter 31 and they used the word sign, which is the same thing as a mark. They use the word sign, but then they come to the book of Revelation. In chapter 13, they use the word mark, but it's pretty much the same thing. So the Most High said that his Sabbath day, according to Exodus chapter 31, Exodus 31 verse 12 to 18, the Most High said that his Sabbath day is his mark. His Sabbath day is his mark. Look it up yourself. Go to Strong Concordance and look up that word. Look it up yourself. Go to dictionary. Study it yourself and you will see. The Sabbath day is the sign, is the mark, God's mark. That's the same reason, that's the reason why the beast, the fourth kingdom, the Europeans, the Roman Empire, who are now known as the Europeans today, modern day Europeans. This is the reason why they had to make a fake calendar. Just like it tells you in Daniel chapter 7. You see, it keeps going back to the scripture. Everything that I'm telling you, keep pointing back to the scripture. That's the reason why if you don't read the book of Daniel chapter 2 and you don't read the book of Daniel chapter 7, you will have no idea what I'm talking about. None of these things that I'm saying will make sense to you. So if you read Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to verse 25, I recommend you read it in New Living Translation. New Living Translation. If you read it there, you will see. You can still read it in your own translation. That doesn't matter. You can read it in any translation that you have, any Bible that you have. That's fine. But if you read it in if you read it in the New Living Translation, it's much better translated there. You can Google Daniel chapter 7 NLT, New Living Translation, and put it into Google, and you read it and you will see for yourself. So it says that the beast, that fourth kingdom, will think to change the sacred festivals of the Hebrews, the sacred festivals and their laws. How did they do this? They did this when they made a man-made calendar. When they made a man-made calendar, that was when they did this. By making remember that the Most High gave us his mark, which is the Sabbath. The Most High gave us the mark, his mark, which is his Sabbath. And he gave us his calendar, which is the moon and the sun, for us to keep his Sabbath day, which is his mark. What Satan had done was that Satan, through the Europeans, made a fake man-made calendar. They made a man-made calendar, and by making that man-made calendar, they made a man-made calendar, which is this calendar right here. You know, this calendar. They made this calendar, which is the calendar that the whole world is using right now. The whole world is using this calendar. So what Satan did, because Satan is the one controlling the Europeans. The Europeans are doing the work of Satan. According to Revelation chapter 13 verse 2. According to Revelation chapter 13 verse 2, it says that beast, you need to read Revelation chapter 13 also. Revelation chapter 13, it says that Satan gave his power, his authority, and his throne to that beast. That is why you see all the stuff that the Europeans have come up with. Look at their government system. Look at their medical system. Look at their entertainment industry. Look at their fashion industry. Look at their food industry. It's all godless, lawless, godless. Dressing like prostitutes, dressing like whoremongers, promoting homosexuality, promoting eating pork and unclean food, all this stuff, turkey, shrimp, everything. Look at their education system. It's all godless. They get their power and their authority. The Europeans get all these things from Satan. Read that Revelation chapter 13 and you will see for yourself. Satan is the god of this world. Satan is the god of this world. According to 2 Corinthians chapter 4. 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4. Satan is the god of this world. And in Job chapter 9 verse 24, Job 9:24 said that the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. But all this system in the world right now, the Most High will destroy it when Yeshua comes back. Read Daniel chapter 2 and you will see that. And the Most High will set up a kingdom that will last forever. So that's why you have to understand that when it comes to the mark of the beast, the Europeans, who are the beast, in order for them to make the mark of the beast, remember that the Sabbath day, according to God, according to the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, according to Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, we know who the beast is. You have to read those places because they tell you who the beast is. And then the beast is the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. The first one was the Babylonians. The second was the Medes and the Persians. And the third was the Greeks. And then the Romans. And it says that the fourth kingdom will rule until the Most High will destroy that fourth kingdom and set up a kingdom that will last forever. So the Romans or the Europeans or the fourth kingdom is still ruling till this day. They are still ruling the world through their United Nations, World Bank, all this stuff that they've set up. Look at the education system in the world. It's the Western education system. Look at this is how they counterfeited God's calendar. According to the Most High, in Exodus chapter 31, Exodus 31 verse 12 to verse 18, Exodus 31, 12 to 18, the Sabbath day is the mark of God. It's the word sign and mark in the Bible is the same thing. The word sign and mark is the same thing. The Sabbath day is the mark of God, the sign of God. Study it yourself. Look up the Hebrew word. It's the same thing. Look it up in Strong's. It's the same thing. So the Sabbath day is God's mark, that his people are supposed to have his mark. And whoever doesn't have God's mark will not be saved. So by keeping the Sabbath according to the moon, because the moon is the calendar that God gave us, by keeping the Sabbath that way, you have God's mark. You have his mark. So what happened is that the beast through Satan, or Satan through the beast, have now created a mark, a satanic mark, which is now known as the mark of the beast. And that is Saturday and Sunday. Because by creating the fake man-made calendar that they created, by creating this calendar, they have now used it to deceive the whole world. Because the Most High told us to work for 6 days and rest on the seventh day. And he gave us the moon and the sun as his calendar. That is the reason why the phases of the moon changes every night. So what they did is that by creating this man-made calendar, that now throws people off. That makes people to begin to keep the Sabbath on the wrong day. You also may want to read the book of Jubilees chapter 6. If you read in Jubilees chapter 6, you will see the Most High saying that this will happen. God said that this will happen. That the Hebrews will begin to follow the Gentiles and their feast days and their holy days or their holidays. So this is what had happened. So this is how the mark of the beast was created. By counterfeiting that Sabbath day and now making it to be on Saturday and on Sunday. So the mark of the beast has nothing to do with a chip in your forehead or in your hand. It has nothing to do with a chip. And I am going to recommend that you read, if you read, for example, this is very, very important. What I'm about to give you right now is very important. Very, very important scripture that will explain to you, that will show you that the mark of the beast has nothing to do with a microchip. It's all about the Sabbath. It's all about the law. Now, if you read Deuteronomy chapter 6, in Deuteronomy chapter 6, Deuteronomy, the book of Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8, Deuteronomy, I'm intentionally repeating this so that you can get it, just in case if you don't hear me. I want to save you the trouble of just pausing this video and going back. That's why I'm repeating this Bible verse so that you can get it. So in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8, the Most High said that his law, we should write his law in our forehead. It should be in our forehead and in our right hand. His law should be in our forehead and in our right hand. You will also see in Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 18. Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 18 says the same thing. His law should be in our forehead and in our right hand. Now my question to you is, what does that mean? What does that mean? How can the law of the Most High be in our forehead and in our right hand? Think about that. How is that possible? How can that be possible? How can the law of the Most High be in our front head and in our right hand? How? Does that mean that we should take the Bible and tie the Bible in our forehead? Does that mean that we should use a rope and tie the Bible in our forehead and be walking around with the Bible? Is that what that means? In Deuteronomy chapter 11, verse 18, you need to read that place in order to understand what I'm talking about. Is that what that means? Does that mean that you should tie the Bible in your arm? Just tie the Bible in your arm and you'll be walking around with the law in your arm and tie the law in your... No, that's not what it means. That is not what it means. When the Most High say in Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8, and in Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 18, that the law should be in your forehead, in your mind, it means to be in your mind. It means for you to acknowledge it with your hand, because on the Sabbath day you're not supposed to walk. For you to acknowledge it, it's a spiritual thing. So when it says in the book of Revelation, if you go in the book of Revelation, when it says that the mark of the beast will be received in the forehead and in the right hand, it doesn't mean that the mark will be given to you physically in your arm. No. If you want to understand what I'm saying, you must read Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8. If you read Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8 and then Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 18, read those two places and then stop and think about what they mean. It doesn't mean that you should tie the law in your right hand and you'll be walking around. If that's the case, then we all will go to hell, because nobody is doing that. When is the last time you saw somebody walking around with the law tied in their hand and the law tied in their forehead? No, it's a spiritual saying. It's a metaphor for you to have the laws in your mind, in your head, in your mind, in your memory, for you to memorize it and have it in your memory. And for you to acknowledge it with the work of your hands. That's what the Most High is saying. It's the same thing when you go to the book of Revelation. In Revelation chapter 13, when it says that the beast will cause the people of the world to accept the mark of the beast in their forehead and in their right hand. It doesn't mean physical. It doesn't mean literally. It's the same thing you see in the book of Deuteronomy. So if you don't understand the book of Deuteronomy, you will not understand the book of Revelation chapter 13. So the mark of the beast has nothing to do with microchip. The mark of the beast has absolutely nothing to do with the microchip. The mark of the beast has everything to do with the Sabbath, because the Most High God, our Creator, tells us in Exodus chapter 31 verse 12 to verse 18. Exodus 31 12 to 18. He tells us that his Sabbath day is his mark. God's Sabbath is his mark, and he said that it's an everlasting mark, that anybody that wants to belong to him must have that mark. And he also gave us his calendar, which is the moon and the sun. This is the reason why the phases of the moon changes every night. He gave us his calendar for us to use to keep his Sabbath day. That is the reason why at the beginning of the month you have the new moon day. And the Most High commanded us in Ezekiel chapter 46 verse 1 to 3. Ezekiel 46 verse 1 to 3, he commanded us that we should worship on a new moon day. We should worship on a new moon day in Ezekiel chapter 46 verse 1 to 3. If you read in Nehemiah chapter 8 verse 1 to 12, Nehemiah chapter 8 verse 1 to 12, you're going to see that the Hebrews was observing the new moon day. Also in 1 Samuel chapter 20, David, Saul, Jonathan, these Hebrews observed the new moon day. You will also see in Colossians chapter 2 verse 16, you see Paul encouraging the early followers of Christ not to let anybody condemn them or judge them for observing the Sabbath days, the feast days, and the new moon day. Even in Isaiah chapter 66 verse 22 and 23, Isaiah chapter 66 verse 22 and 23, the Most High, our Heavenly Father Yah, said that in the future, as the new heaven and the new earth which he will create will last, because he will destroy this world, this current system in the world. He said that as the new heaven and the new earth which he will create will last, that from one new moon to another and from one Sabbath to another, that all flesh will come and worship before him. And those that came to worship him will see the dead bodies of those that refused to, that rebelled against him. So the moon is God's calendar. What the beast, which is the Europeans, what the beast have done is that they created a fake calendar and they created a fake worship day, which is Saturday and Sunday worship. And they now deceive the whole world. So if you are not keeping the Sabbath, God's Sabbath, if you are not working for 6 days and resting on the 7th day, just like God told you to do, you have the mark of the beast already, and you will be destroyed. That is the mark of the beast, because it tells us in the book of Revelation chapter 14 that anybody who accepts the mark of the beast or who worships the beast, that person will be tormented for the rest of, will be tormented day and night forever. They will be tormented in the lake of fire day and night. They will not be saved. If you don't keep God's Sabbath according to the moon and keep God's Sabbath, then automatically you have the mark of the beast on you. Automatically you have the mark of the beast. That is what the mark of the beast is. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with microchip that we're giving you in your arm. That is absolutely nonsense. A garbage from Satan. A smoke screen that has been put out by Satan through his children to deceive you. The mark of the beast has nothing to do with a microchip. The mark of the beast is all about the Sabbath. The mark of the beast is a counterfeit of God's mark. God's mark, the mark of God. Yah's mark is the Sabbath day. God's mark is the Sabbath day. You need to read all these places that I just quoted. So, and the mark of the beast is the counterfeit of that, which is Saturday worship and Sunday worship, and also trying to get you not to worship at all, not to observe the Sabbath day. If you are not observing the Sabbath day according to the moon, automatically you have the mark of the beast. The mark automatically, because everybody must have God's mark. You need to read Exodus chapter 31 verse 12 to 18 to see that. Everybody, if you don't have God's mark, you will not be saved. You are doomed. You will be reserved for destruction and everlasting torment in the lake of fire. So you need to accept God's mark and reject the mark of the beast. Simply not keeping the Sabbath day according to the moon means that you have the mark of the beast. You need to read all these places. So the mark of the beast has nothing to do with microchip. The mark of the beast is all about the Sabbath day. It's all about the law. It has nothing to do with 666, or it has nothing to do with a microchip. Let me put it that way. It has nothing to do with a microchip that we're giving you in your forehead or in your arm. Again, you need to read Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8. You need to read Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8. Read Deuteronomy chapter 6 verse 8 and you will see it. And also Deuteronomy chapter 11 verse 18. You will see what the Most High said about his law, that it should be in your front leg and in your right arm. Again, does that mean that you should be walking around with the law tied in your head? No, it's the same thing. So that's the same thing you see in the book of Revelation. In the book of Revelation chapter 13. And you see that Satan and the beast have deceived the whole world. Because if you remember in the book of Revelation, you remember that it says that the whole world was caused to worship the beast. According to the book of Revelation, you need to read the Revelation chapter 13, okay, in order to understand more about this beast. It says that Satan and the beast basically have caused the whole world to accept the mark of the beast. And truly, if you look at it from this point of view, if you look at it from all these scriptures, you see that, yes, most of the whole world is not keeping the Sabbath. Most of the world are not. So they have accepted the mark of the beast, and you're dealing with a deceiver. You're dealing with Satan, who is a deceiver. He has deceived the world, and he now made people to sit around and wait for the day that some microchip will be given to them. That day is not coming. You already have the mark of the beast. The mark of the beast is here already, right now, as I speak. And the mark of the beast is a counterfeit of God's mark, which is the Sabbath day. And today, Sunday and Saturday is a day that came from the beast, from the Europeans, from the Roman Empire. And if you don't have God's mark, which is keeping the Sabbath according to the moon, if you don't have his mark, you basically have the mark of the beast. Because the goal of the beast and Satan is to get you to not have God's mark, to not keep the Sabbath. That is their goal. And that's the reason why you have to keep God's Sabbath by all means. By all means. No matter what it takes. And this is the reason why when you try to keep the Sabbath according to the moon, guess what? It's hard to find a job. it's hard to find a job, and that's the reason why you will need to start your own business. So it's hard to find a job. It's hard to, find job if you want to keep the Sabbath according to the moon. And if you don't have a job, you're not going to be able to have money to buy or sell. So that's the reason why. So, the mark of the beast has nothing to do with some microchip in your hand or whatever. No, it's all about the law. It's all about God's Sabbath. Because the holy day, that day that the Most High tells us to not go to work, not to buy and sell, but to worship. Remember, this is very important. That's why I said in the beginning, I hope that that the Most High will open your eyes to understand this information that I'm sharing with you. This is a soul-saving information. But unfortunately, some of you may not get this. Some of you may not get it. I hope that you will understand this. Look at the Sabbath day. Look at this. Look at what is associated with the Sabbath day. On a Sabbath day, we're not supposed to buy and sell. We are not supposed to buy and sell on the Sabbath day. To work on the Sabbath day. We're not supposed to go to work on the Sabbath day. We are supposed to worship on the Sabbath day. We are supposed to worship on the God's Sabbath day. These are things we see in the Bible, right? We're supposed to rest and worship. Rest, worship, no buying or selling, no walking on the Sabbath day. Now look at the mark of the beast, which is his own days. Look at the mark of the beast, which is Sunday worship and Saturday. Look at those days that Satan have created through the beast, which is Saturday and Sunday. What do people do? Look at the government buildings. Most government buildings are closed. Most government buildings are closed on Saturday and Sunday. You know that. I don't care where you are in the world. Most government buildings and some businesses are closed on Sundays. Most people don't go to work on Sunday. You know that. You're beginning to see the similarities. You're beginning to see the similarities between God's mark and Satan's mark, which is the mark of the beast. God's mark, we're told not to go to work. The mark of the beast, remember who the beast is. The beast is the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. You may have to pause this and read the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. You will see that the beast is the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. So, in God's mark, according to the mark of God, we're not supposed to go to work. According to the mark of the beast, on Sunday and Saturday, most people don't go to work. They are off on that day. They are resting on that day. They don't go to work. Most people don't go to work on Saturday and Sunday. It was actually recently that people began to go to work on Sundays and Saturdays. When this was initially started, if you begin to go back a couple of years ago, decades ago, people don't work on Sunday and on Saturday. People did not work. You're beginning to see the similarity. Even till this day, most government buildings and most official businesses are closed on Sunday and on Saturday. You know that. So you see the similarity between God's mark, which is the Sabbath, and the mark of the beast, which is Saturday and Sunday. You're seeing the similarities. Another thing is we are told to rest. So people we're supposed to rest on the Sabbath day, which is God's mark. And you see that people rest on Saturday and Sunday, right? And that similarity is between this mark of God and the mark of the beast. You will also see that buying and selling. Let me deal with worship first. Worship, before we're going to buying and selling, which will lead us into you and your job and keeping the Sabbath. So look at another similarity. According to the mark of God, we're supposed to worship on that day. God's mark has to do with worship. God's sign. The Sabbath is the sign of God, the mark of God. Read Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to 18. So, according to the mark of God, God's mark or God's sign has to do with worship. We are supposed to worship the Most High on that day. Now, look at the similarity with Sunday worship. or Saturday worship. What do people do in the mark of the beast? They go to work. They rest. They don't go to work and they worship. You see the similarities? It's not a coincidence. It's not a coincidence. Do you think that people just came up with Sunday and Saturday rest and worship? No. So this is a counterfeit. Saturday worship and Sunday worship is a counterfeit of God's mark. It's a mark of the beast. It's the mark of the beast. So even the Catholic Church who came up with this stuff, even them will admit some of these things if they want to tell you the truth. So the thing is that you see that God's mark has to do with worship. The mark of the beast also has to do with worship, because guess what? As you know, people go to church on Sunday and people go to church on Saturday. But Satan is smart. Satan is intelligent and smart. What he did is that he came up with 2 days, so that in that way, because his goal is to deceive you into disobeying the Most High. So he came up with Saturday worship and Sunday worship. They have nothing to do with the Most High. So you see that God's mark has to do with worship. Satan's mark, or the mark of the beast, also has to do with worship. Saturday worship, Sunday worship. You've seen the similarities. Another thing is buying and selling. Buying and selling. Buying and selling. Remember that the Most High told us not to, according to, we're not supposed to go out shopping on the Sabbath. We're supposed to stay home and rest and worship, right? According to the mark of the beast also. So now this is the part you're beginning to come into what you are experiencing today. We are getting into that part of what you are experiencing. And now I'm going to slow down. Let's now deal with your issue. If you look at everything that I just broke down right now, this brings us to what you are dealing with your struggles, trying to keep the Sabbath and keep your job, trying to keep the true biblical Sabbath. Before I continue, I need to point out something else, one more thing, or a few more things. If you look at Daniel chapter 7, see, that's why I kept telling you that you have to read Daniel chapter 7. In Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25, Daniel 7, 23 to 25, Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to verse 25. If you look at the book of Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25, you are going to see that Daniel said that the fourth kingdom will think to change the times and the laws. He will think to change the times and the laws. I'm going to read this thing from the New Living Translation so that you can see what it looks like. I'm going to actually read it from New Living Translation, and I will love for you to read this thing from New Living Translation. Please, if you don't have New Living Translation Bible, go to Google. So I'm simply typing it into Google right now. I'm going to type it into Google and I will read it from New Living Translation. So I go into Google, I go to Bible Hub. Where is Bible Hub? I just typed in Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25. You look for New Living Translation, or you can simply just type in Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25, and you type in NLT, which means New Living Translation. So that will take you to New Living Translation. So I'm going to read Daniel chapter 7. I'm going to read Daniel chapter 7 from New Living Translation so that you can see what it says. So you see how this beast, the Europeans, or the fourth kingdom that is supposed to rule the world, and they're ruling right now. You will see how they made this counterfeit calendar. I need to clear this out, point this out before we move forward into how you can overcome, into how you can be able to keep the Sabbath and keep your job. I'm going to give you that information. Look at Daniel chapter 7. I'm going to read Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25. Daniel 7, 23 to 25. This is how the beast counterfeited God's calendar or God's mark. Check this out. Or you can just pause this video and read it yourself. But I'm going to read it and you can read it yourself. You can read it from any Bible translation. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be New Living Translation. You can read it, but New Living Translation translated this place very well. It was very well translated in the New Living Translation. So you can read it in any translation. It doesn't matter. But I like the way it was translated in the New Living Translation. So it says in Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25. Then he said to me, this fourth beast is the fourth world power that will rule the earth. It will be different from all the others. It will devour the whole world, trampling and crushing everything in its path. See that thing I was telling you? If you study what the Europeans have done around the world, oh my goodness. What they did in Asia, their conquest, their imperialism around the world, all over the world, from Asia to Africa, colonizing the Africans, colonizing the Asians, destroying the Native Americans. Anywhere they go is death and destruction. And that's what you see in the book of Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, telling you that this world power will do this. The Bible tells you that. So when I see these people that say that the Bible is not true, Bible was made up, they have no idea what they're talking about, because the Bible tells you a book that was made up cannot tell you the things that will happen, and they will happen. It's not possible. So the things that this fourth kingdom have done around the world, their colonialism, their imperialism, their all the stuff that they have done and they are still doing as of today. America has more than 800 military bases around the world. America has more than 800 military bases around the world. What do they need it for? What do they need that for? You know, so that's because it's an imperialism. They are ruling the world, the Europeans, and just like the Bible tells you that they will. But if you are an European, don't go up jumping up and down and celebrating, because that same book says that your destruction is coming. The destruction of that fourth kingdom is coming. Again, I'm still resting my case on Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7. You must read it in order to understand what I'm saying. So don't sit there and get angry and like, oh, he's saying, you know, actually read it. Read Daniel. If you just read it and see for yourself. Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7 tells you about the four kingdoms that will rule the world, from the Babylonians to the second coming of Christ. Right now, we are living within the fourth kingdom. And that fourth kingdom are the Europeans. They are the beast that the Bible speaks of. That fourth kingdom is the beast. The beast is not a man. So the fourth kingdom is ruling right now. So in Daniel chapter 7 verse 23 to 25, it says, then he said to me, the fourth beast is the fourth world power that will rule the earth. It will be different from all the others. It will devour the whole world. Devour the whole world. This is not a good thing for the whole world. And the fourth kingdom, the Europeans, have not been a good thing for the whole world. Go talk to the Native Americans and they will testify to that. Go talk to the Aborigines in Australia. Go talk to the Africans. Go talk to the Japanese, who, you know, it hasn't been a good news for the world. They have trampled on the whole world and crushed everything, just like the Bible tells you in Daniel chapter 7 that they will. I'm not making this up. So Daniel chapter 7 from verse 23 to 25. Then he said to me, the angel is talking to Daniel. Then he said to me, this fourth beast is the fourth world power that will rule the earth. It will be different from all the others. It will devour the whole world, trampling and crushing everything in its path. Its 10 horns are 10 kings who will rule that empire. Then another king will arise, different from the other 10, who will subdue 3 of them. He will defy the Most High. Verse 25, Daniel chapter 7, verse 25. He will defy the Most High. Are they not defying the Most High today? Are the Europeans, the British, the French, the Spanish, and of course the Americans, and they defying the Most High with their homosexuality that they are promoting and shoving down the throat of everyone else in the world? You see American government, the so-called State Department, going to Africa and lecturing African government like Zambia and other countries, lecturing these countries and trying to force them to pass laws legalizing so-called gay marriage. When you have a country like America and their so-called State Department going around the world, lecturing the whole world or lecturing other countries and trying to influence them to pass, to allow gay marriage, they are defying the Most High, and they have always defied the Most High. If you know anything about this fourth kingdom, which is the Europeans, if you go and study this history of the Roman Empire, actually, you know what? Look under this video. I'm going to put a link. I will put a link. You would just watch the videos that I'm going to put a link on under this video. Watch them. That will give you more information about this fourth beast, what they have done. That will give you a little history of the Roman Empire or the Europeans of today, what they have done with their conquest and their imperialism and their colonialism, what they have done around the world. Look under this video, you will see a link, and watch that video, and you will see that this is exactly what the book of Daniel was telling you even before it happened. This was already written down before the Europeans ever even existed. So remember that the Europeans are the fourth kingdom that are supposed to rule the world, the fourth beast. So it says in Daniel chapter 7 verse 25, he will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. So, and that's another thing that I have to point out. If you read Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, and also in Revelation chapter 13, if you read these places, you will see that the people of the Most High will be given into the hand of this fourth kingdom. And that's exactly what happened. That's why you see the Europeans going to Africa. First of all, they went to Jerusalem in 70 AD and destroyed Jerusalem. They destroyed Jerusalem and they kicked the Hebrews out. The Hebrews migrated towards Africa and settled in Africa. Right? They settled in Africa. This happened in 70 AD. And if you want to see more information about this, you can read Luke 21. In Luke chapter 21, you are going to read about when Christ talked about how the Hebrews was going to be kicked out. As of the time of Christ, as of the time when Christ was still in this world, the real Hebrews, the real Jews, the real Hebrews was still in Jerusalem. Now, if you read Luke chapter 21, you're going to read about Christ telling the real Hebrews how they were going to be kicked out of that land. And Jerusalem was going to be destroyed. And that the Gentiles will dwell or will trample on that land until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. The fulfillment of the times of the Gentile is what you read in Daniel chapter 2 and chapter 7. Because the Gentiles will rule the world until Christ returns. And then the Gentiles, that fourth kingdom will be destroyed. That fourth kingdom will be destroyed. And Christ will establish his kingdom. That fourth kingdom will be burned up with fire. So the people of the Most High was driven out of that land in 70 AD. So it was the Roman Empire. It was Rome. Rome came to Jerusalem in 70 AD and destroyed the temple, destroyed the city of Jerusalem and drove the Hebrews out. And the Hebrews migrated to Africa. It was the same Europeans, the same Roman Empire that went to Africa in the 1600s and took the same Hebrews. How come? Why didn't the Europeans go to North Africa to go take slaves? Why didn't they go to North Africa? Why didn't they go to East Africa? They went straight to West Africa. That was where the Hebrews was. They went there and took the Hebrews as slaves and took them to the Americas. And from there, some of them went towards Jamaica, some went towards Haiti, Belize, Trinidad, U.S. Virgin Island. So, and according to the book of Daniel, like it says in Daniel chapter 7:25, Daniel chapter 7 verse 25, he will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. And when you look at the treatment of the Hebrews in America or in other places, it's nothing but oppression, starting from slavery, even till this day. It's nothing but the Hebrews are going through oppression in the hands of the beast, which is the fourth kingdom that was supposed to rule the world, and they're ruling the world. It's nothing but oppression. It's nothing but oppression. So you see that fourth kingdom oppressing the people of the Most High, just like it tells you. I'm not going to get into that. I have videos about that. You can look on that. I have videos about that if you look around in my channel. So that's what's going on. And the people of the Most High are being oppressed. The people of the Most High are under captivity, or was under captivity in the hands of the beast. So it says in Daniel chapter 7 verse 25, he will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws. This is the reason why I advise you to read it from the book of New Living Translation, which you can simply type in Daniel chapter 7 verse 23 to 25, NLT, N as in Nancy, L as light, T as Tom, which stands for New Living Translation. If you want to read from the translation that I'm reading right now, go to Google and type in Daniel chapter 7, Daniel 7, 23 to 25, Daniel 7, 23, 25, NLT. And you read it from New Living Translation, because it says that this beast, this fourth kingdom that's supposed to rule the world, it actually says that he will, in verse 25, Daniel chapter 7 verse 25, Daniel 7:25, he will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws, and they will be placed under his control for times and half a time. So that's how you got your slavery. That's how the Europeans took the Hebrews as slaves. That's how they have the Hebrews as slaves. So, and the Most High is the one that allowed his people to be placed under the control of the fourth kingdom, because the Most High wanted to punish his people, because his people stopped keeping his laws. The people of the Most High became wicked and stopped keeping God's law, and the Most High sent the Europeans, the Gentiles, which is who are the fourth kingdoms, to take the people of the Most High as slaves, to kick them out of their land and oppress them and take them as slaves. And that's what's happening today. So it also says, and this is something that you may be familiar with. You may be familiar with this one. It says in that Daniel chapter 7 verse 25, he will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws. And that's how the Europeans ended up creating the man-made calendar, the Gregorian calendar. Because the goal here is to create a fake mark. God's mark is the Sabbath, which he gave to his people. And his people, the Hebrews, are now supposed to teach the rest of the world about the laws and the commandment of the Most High, which includes the Sabbath. So what the beast, that beast that is being described in Daniel chapter 7 and Daniel chapter 2 and Revelation chapter 13, that beast are the Europeans. They are the descendant of the Roman Empire. Remember that the fourth kingdom is supposed to rule until the second coming of Christ. And Christ is not here yet. So they are still ruling. They are controlling the world through their World Bank, through the United Nations, through all this organization that they have put together. They are ruling the whole world through that. You look at the whole world is pretty much following the beast. The whole world is following the beast. Look at the whole world has been westernized. Almost the whole world has been westernized. With Western education, Christianity, Western government, which is so-called democracy. Almost every country now has democracy, right? So the whole world is following after the beast, just like it tells chapter 13. So what the beast wanted to do is to counterfeit the mark of God. So they created, because that the Most High said, work shall be done for 7 days and you rest, work for 6 days and rest on the 7th day. The Most High gave us the sun and the moon for us to use the sun and the moon as our calendar. He gave us the sun and the moon for us to use the sun and the moon as our calendar. God gave us the sun and the moon as our calendar, according to Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to verse 16. Genesis 1:14 to 16. Psalm 104 verse 19. Psalm 104 verse 19. Psalm 104 verse 19. Sirach chapter 43 verse 6 to 8. Sirach, the book of Sirach. You may not have the book of Sirach in your Bible, but you can Google it. Type into Google Sirach chapter 43 verse 6 to 8. These places show that the Most High gave us the sun and the moon as our calendar. So according to Daniel chapter 7 verse 23 to 25, which I read in the New Living Translation. You can read it in any other translation. It's okay. You can read it. That's fine. Or you can Google it and read it but New Living Translation explains it very well. Because in other translation, it simply says that he will think to change the times and the laws. But if you read the Daniel chapter 7, verse 23 to 25, you see that it says that beast, that fourth kingdom, will think to change the sacred festival. Let me read that. I don't want to paraphrase it. So it says in Daniel chapter 7, verse 25, Daniel 7:25, he will defy the Most High and oppress the holy people of the Most High. He will try to change their sacred festivals and laws. And that's exactly what they did. It was easy for them to do this because the Most High gave us the laws for us to keep and for us to teach the rest of the world to keep the laws also. But what the Most High also did is that he gave us a calendar. The Most High cannot tell you to keep the Sabbath on the 7th day and not give you a calendar. So the Most High created the sun and the moon for us to use it as our calendar. So what the beast have done, like you see, like we see in Daniel chapter 7. Daniel chapter 7 verse 23 to 25 tells us that the beast will do this. We were told that the beast will try to do this. And they did. They did. What they did is that they now created a fake calendar, a man-made calendar. Because the goal here is to get you to disobey the Most High. The goal is to create a counterfeit of the mark of God. In order for them to do this, they had to create a fake calendar, which is a man-made calendar. Man-made calendar. The calendar on your phone, the calendar in everybody's phone, it's a man-made calendar. This calendar right here. This calendar right here, the calendar in your phone, like the one in this phone or in this tablet, the calendar on your phones, the calendar on your wall. This is a man-made calendar that was made by who? The Europeans. It was a Roman Catholic Pope by the name of Pope Gregory. He was the one that made the man-made calendar that the world is using today, known as the Gregorian calendar. So this is how they got people to stop, to reject the mark of God and now accept the mark of the beast. Because by them creating a man-made calendar, by them doing this, and now saying that Saturday and Sunday is the worship day, that means that throws you off. That threw people off. So today, for those that are worshiping on Saturday and worshiping on Sunday, they have the mark of the beast. Because the Sabbath, according to Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to 18, the Sabbath is God's mark. So when a human being, or when people come and create another day of worship, that's their own mark. In this case, the Bible calls this fourth kingdom the beast. So Saturday worship and Sunday worship is the mark of the beast. Saturday worship and Sunday worship is the mark of the beast. It's a counterfeit of the original mark of God, which is the Sabbath day. And the Most High gave us the Sabbath to keep. He also gave us his calendar for us. He gave us his calendar for us to use his calendar to keep his Sabbath. We're supposed to keep the Sabbath based on God's calendar, which is the moon. And that's why the phases of the moon changes every night. The phases of the moon changes every night. The phases of so you look under this video, you will see some links that will give you more information about that. So the phases of the moon changes every night because the Most High created the moon for us to use the moon as our calendar. It's that simple. As you can see in this calendar, as you can see, the Most High gave us his, as you can see in all the scriptures that I read, in all the scriptures that I quoted, like for example, we see in Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to 16, Genesis chapter 1 verse 14 to 16, and Psalm 104 verse 19, Psalm 104 verse 19, Sirach chapter 43, verse 6 to verse 8. In these places you will see that, and also in Enoch chapter 77, these places you see that the Most High gave us his calendar. He gave us the sun and the moon and the stars for us to use it as our calendar. That's the reason why the phases of the moon changes every night. It's not a coincidence that the phases of the moon changes every night. At the beginning of the month, we have a new moon day, which is the beginning of the month. You know, like as you can see in this chart, at the beginning of the month, we have a new moon day. The beginning of the month is a new moon day. And according to Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1 to 3, Ezekiel chapter 46, verse 1 to 3, was supposed to observe that new moon day. It's a worship day. And you read in Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 1 to 12. Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 1 to 12. Nehemiah chapter 8, verse 1 to 12. You see how the Hebrews observe the new moon day. So basically, at the beginning of the month, the way the calendar of the Most High works is that at the beginning of the month, you have a new moon day. And remember that he told us to work for 6 days and rest on the seventh day. Work shall be done for 6 days and we rest on the seventh day. So at the beginning of the month, you have a new moon day. So we observe a new moon day. And then the next day you go to work. You work for 6 days. You work for all these days you see here. In all these work days, you work for 6 days. And then you keep the Sabbath on the seventh day. You observe your Sabbath on the seventh day. On that Sabbath day, the moon will be 50% full. The moon will be 50% full. We observe our Sabbath. Then the next day, we go back to work. And then we work for 6 days. In all these work days, for 6 days, we work for 6 days. And then we come to the seventh day again. On the second Sabbath of the month, the moon will be full moon. The moon will be full. It's not a coincidence that this thing works this way. It's not a coincidence. And then we observe our Sabbath on that full moon. We observe our Sabbath. And then the next day, we go back to work. We work in all these days. Work for 6 days and then we rest on the seventh day. This is the way the Most High created his calendar. It's not a coincidence. So what the Europeans have done, what the beasts have done is that they have counterfeited this. They counterfeited this by creating a man-made calendar. A man-made calendar, the same man-made calendar that you have in your phone, this kind of calendar, this man-made calendar, that we all have in our phones and stuff, we have in our wall, in our offices and stuff. It's a pagan man-made calendar. So you see the clever way. You see how clever Satan is. Because Satan and his people knows that the Most High told us that we must keep the Sabbath. And the Sabbath is very important. In order for them to get you to break the Sabbath, they came up with the idea to create a different calendar. This is a different calendar. This calendar right here, this is a different calendar from the calendar that the Most High created. This is a man-made calendar. It's a different calendar from the calendar that the Most High created. The Most High created the sun and the moon for us to use it as our calendar. The sun regulates the day, and the moon regulates the month. That's why the phases of the moon changes every night. So Satan being clever and trying to deceive you and deceive us, decided to use his people. Remember that place that we read in Revelation chapter 13, verse 2. It says that Satan gave his power, his throne, and his authority to the beast. And the beast is that fourth kingdom that will rule the world. And they are ruling right now. And today, they are now known today as the Europeans, the Americans, the British, the French, the German, the Spanish. These are the Europeans. These are the descendants of the Roman Empire, which is the fourth kingdom that will rule the world. And this fourth kingdom is supposed to rule until the time that Christ will come back the second time. And Christ is not here yet. So the people who are ruling the world, they are so they are the one that came up with this fake man-made calendar to counterfeit the mark of the Most High. That's why it says in Daniel chapter 7, if you remember in Daniel chapter 7, it says that in Daniel chapter 7 verse 23 to 25, it says that he will think to change their sacred festivals and the laws. So how do they do this? By creating a fake man-made calendar, which is how you got Saturday and Sunday. You see how, this is very clear. You see how this happened? So it's Saturday. If you worship on Saturday or on Sunday, you have the mark of the beast. You have the mark of the beast. And if you don't worship at all, if you don't keep the Sabbath according to the moon, you're not keeping it. You are not keeping it, because what Satan has done is that he counterfeited the original mark. Remember that according to Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, Exodus 31, 12 to 18, we see that the Sabbath is a mark of the Most High. Those that keep God's Sabbath has the mark of God. They have his sign. It's a sign that identifies those that belong to the Most High. That's his mark, his sign. So what Satan has done is that Satan has counterfeited that mark, just like they counterfeited the holy days. The Passover and the other holy days, they counterfeited it with Easter, Christmas, New Year, and all that. So that's what happened. So if you don't keep God's Sabbath day according to the moon, automatically you have the mark of the beast, because the Most High said that we must keep the Sabbath. And this applies to everybody. Everybody. The same law he gave to the Israelite also applies to the non-Israelite forever. And that's according to Numbers chapter 15, verse 15 and verse 16. Numbers chapter 15, verse 15 and verse 16. Numbers 15, 15, 16. The same law God gave to the Israelite also applies to the non-Israelite forever. And that brings me to, if you are an European person, if you are an American, an European, and you need to start keeping God's law, because your people are the ones who are described as the fourth beast that will rule the world. And your people were not described in a good way. And the future of your people doesn't look good, according to the Bible. Because the Bible does tell us in that book of Daniel, chapter 2, and chapter 7, that fourth beast will be destroyed. The flesh of that fourth beast will burn with fire. So a nuclear destruction awaits the Europeans. Nuclear destruction awaits your people. The only way you are going to be protected and saved from the wrath of the Most High that will come upon the fourth beast and destroy it, which is the Europeans. The only way, your ticket to avoid that destruction is to keep God's law and commandment. You must begin to keep God's law, and that also includes the Sabbath. You must keep the Sabbath according to the moon. Other than this, you are doomed. You are doomed. The Most High will destroy you and your people. If you are an European, you need to start keeping God's law. And that also applies to everyone. Everyone must keep God's law. Whether you are a Jew, whether you are a Hebrew or not, whether you are a Gentile, you must keep God's law. You have to. The Sabbath must be kept by everyone. Those that refuse to keep the Sabbath will be destroyed. So that's basically what the mark of the beast is. And this is the reason why you're having problem to keep the Sabbath. This is the reason why you're having problem. You need to understand, that like it says, we're not supposed to buy and sell, or like you're familiar with when it says that whoever doesn't have the mark of the beast, they will not be able to buy or sell, right? In the book of Revelation, you have to have the mark of the beast in order to be able to buy or sell. Can you buy or sell if you don't have a job? If you don't have a job, where are you going to get money to buy or sell? It will be very difficult to get money if you don't have a job. So that's what this is all about. The Sabbath, Saturday worship and Sunday worship is the mark of the beast, which is a counterfeit of the mark of God. It's a counterfeit of God's mark. So that's the reason why you're struggling. That is the reason why you're struggling. That is the reason why, like as I said in the beginning, that's the big reason why you're struggling. That's the reason why you're finding it difficult to be able to keep a job, and you're thinking, how can I keep a job and still keep this Sabbath? How is that possible? How do I go to school and still keep this Sabbath? That's why you're struggling. So you need to, I'm going to come to the part, this brings us to you right now. This brings us to anyone who is struggling and who would like to keep the Sabbath, but they are not able to get a day off from their job. You have to understand that the current system in the world right now is satanic. The whole system in the world right now is satanic. Job chapter 9 verse 24. Job 9:24 said that the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. The earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. In 2 Corinthians chapter 4 verse 4, 2 Corinthians 4:4 say that the Satan is the god of this world. And in Revelation chapter 13 verse 2, it said that Satan gave his power, his throne and authority to the beast. The Europeans are that beast, and they get their power from Satan. Look at the system that they've created. Look at the education system. It's godless. Godless. Look at their judicial system. It's godless. That's why you see all this Supreme Court passing laws about gay marriage, passing laws that bestiality is okay, and passing laws, all these laws. It's a satanic system. Look at their entertainment industry, promoting homosexuality, promoting all this filth and abomination. Look at their fashion, promoting promoting women dressing like prostitutes and men dressing like whoremongers. The system in the world right now is satanic, and that includes the education system. The reason why you are struggling and you're going to find it difficult is because you've been brought up in a satanic system. You were taught to go to school and get a certificate. When you go to school and you get certificate, like you get a certificate like this, when you go to school and get a certificate, you get a bachelor's degree, a master's degree, doctorate degree. You're getting this system in a satanic system. That's why this system sets you up to be a slave. When you go to school and you obtain a degree, you obtain these degrees, you are nothing but a slave. Because your degree means nothing if you don't work for somebody. When you go to all these institutions, high school, college, and you obtain master degree, bachelor's degree, associate degree, PhD, these degrees means nothing if you don't go and work for somebody. You have to actually go and work for somebody in order for your degree to mean anything. The problem with this is that you are at the mercy of the person you are working for. You are at their mercy. They have to give you a schedule. They have to pretty much tell you when to come in, when you should come to work, and when you should go. You are at their mercy. And that's why when you realize about the true biblical Sabbath, you find out, oh man, how can I keep this and keep my job? Well, you need to come out of that system. That's why I said in the beginning, if you remember what I said in the beginning, you see, you're going to have to make a decision. This isn't supposed to be easy. The Most High, as you can see in the Bible, in those Bible prophecy, in Daniel chapter 2, Daniel chapter 7, those places that I showed you in Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, and Revelation chapter 13, you see that the Most High knew that all these things will happen. He knew, but he's testing us to see what we will do. He's testing you to see if you are going to not keep the Sabbath because of your job. The Most High God is going to be testing you. That's why I said in the beginning, this is not supposed to be easy. It's not going to be easy. You're going to have to be ready to make sacrifices. You're going to have to be ready to make sacrifices. And at the end of the day, it really comes down to how important your salvation is to you. There's a lot of people that talk the talk, but are not willing to walk the walk. If your salvation is important to you, like Paul tells us in Philippians chapter 2, verse 12, to work out our own salvation with fear and trembling. If your salvation is important to you, then you're going to look at this in a very different way, and you're going to have to make sacrifices and make changes. Most people are not willing to do that. So you may need to have to move to a different city. You may need to quit your job and find another job that will allow you to keep the Sabbath. You may need to move to a different state, a different country. You have to do whatever you can to keep the Sabbath, whatever it takes. Because if you don't keep the Sabbath, you are doomed. If you don't keep the Sabbath, you have the mark of the beast. If you don't keep the Sabbath according to the moon, you automatically have the mark of the beast. Because that was the goal of Satan and the beast, the Europeans. That was their goal. The goal is to get you to disobey God's Sabbath. And if it means, that's why they have Saturday worship and Sunday worship. The goal is to distract you and deceive you away from, and that's why they created the man-made calendar to throw you off. So if you don't keep God's Sabbath day, you are doomed, like it says in Revelation chapter 14. Revelation chapter 14 from verse 9. If you worship the beast and his image and accept his mark, you are doomed. And that's what you will be doing if you don't keep the Sabbath according to the moon. Because the Sabbath day, according to the Bible in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, the Sabbath day the Sabbath day is basically the mark of God. The Sabbath is the mark of God, like we see in Exodus. The Sabbath is the mark of God. Sabbath is the mark of God. So if the Sabbath is the mark of God, then if you don't have it, then you're not. It says in Exodus chapter 31, verse 12 to verse 18, that the Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. The Sabbath is a sign that identifies those that belongs to him. It's a mark. It's the mark. Again, look up that word sign and mark. Go look it up even in a regular dictionary. Look it up. You see, so pretty much the same thing. So you have to do whatever you can within your power. Anything you can to keep the Sabbath, you must keep the Sabbath. You have to keep the Sabbath. So you need to figure out a way to, if it means if your job that you have right now will not let you keep the Sabbath, you need to quit that job. You need to quit that job. You need to prepare. You need to, this also applies to your children. You see, you have to also, the current system like as I said, sets you up to be a slave. It sets you up to work for somebody and be a slave to them. You don't want this to happen to your children. You don't want this to happen to your children. If you have children, you need to let your son learn a skill. That's the way it used to be done, even in the biblical times. Your son needs to learn a skill. Your son will need to learn a skill. Learn to be either a carpenter, a plumber, electrician, whatever, a graphic designer, but they need to learn a skill so that in that way they can start their own business and not have to be a slave to somebody. If you send your children to school to go obtain a degree, if you send your children, your son, to high school, to college, to university, to go obtain a degree, you're preparing your son to become a slave, because that degree that your child will obtain will mean nothing if they don't go and work for somebody. And when your child works for somebody, your child is at the mercy of the person they are working for. Is that really what you want for your child? Your son can do better than that. You need to let your son learn a skill. They need to learn a skill at a very young age so that they can be established at a very young, as soon as possible, they'll be established and start their own business. You need to let your son learn a skill. Don't send your children to this current worldly education system. You shouldn't have anything to do with this worldly education system. You need to prepare your son to have a skill. If you have a daughter, your daughter needs to learn. You need to prepare your daughter to be a wife. That's what it teaches us. We were taught in Titus chapter 2. According to Titus chapter 2, your daughter is supposed to be trained to be a wife, to be a mother, to be a housewife. Not just a wife, but a housewife. This idea of sending girls to school today, this is a Gentile idea, a hidden idea from the beast, from the Europeans. That's an idea that comes from them. And it does nothing but destroys your daughter. It turns your daughter into a full-fledged prostitute. A full-fledged prostitute that will, just by going to college in these days, will know so much about sex more than you. It's an abomination what goes on in those college campuses, in those college, the dorm rooms. These children, your daughters and your sons, are having orgies with other children there. This school system prepares your children to become whoremongers and homosexuals and lesbians. Is that where you want to send your children? The Bible teaches us to train our daughters to become a wife, a housewife. Read Titus chapter 2. Your daughter is supposed to get married as soon as she sees her period. I know that this may be the first time you're hearing this. According to 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 36, 1 Corinthians chapter 7 verse 36, your daughter it says that if any man thinks he is behaving uncomely towards his virgin, if she has passed the flower of her age, let them marry. If any man thinks he's behaving uncomely towards his virgin, if she has passed the flower of her age, let them marry. That flower of her age is blood. If you read Leviticus chapter 15, read Leviticus chapter 15 in verse 24, and also in verse 31, verse 32, you will see that flower, the term flower in the Bible is talking about blood. Like the fruit of the womb, like a seed is a child. A seed is a child. The fruit of the womb is pregnancy. So blood is described as flower. So if you go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, when you go back to 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verse 36, when he says that if any man thinks he's behaving uncomely towards his virgin, if she has past the flower of her age, let them marry. What he's talking about there is that if she has seen her period, let them marry. She's ready for marriage. Most women in the Bible, Rebecca, Mary, the mother of Christ, most women in the Bible got married at the age of 12, 13. As soon as they see their period, they get married. That is the age. That is what the Most High. That's the way the Most High arranged. Makes it to be. If a girl see her period, she's ready for marriage. These things that are happening today, when you send your children to those education system, your daughter will become, a prostitute. She will start having a boyfriend and start losing her virginity. You need to teach your daughter to keep her virginity until her wedding night. It is your duty as a parent to teach your daughter to keep her virginity until her wedding night. You must teach your daughter to keep her virginity until her wedding night, because the Most High requires you. Your God requires you to teach your daughters and your sons the laws and the commandment of the Most High. You have to teach your daughters. You look at Exodus chapter, Deuteronomy chapter 32, verse 46. You are required to teach your daughters and your sons the laws of the Most High. So according to Deuteronomy chapter 22, if you read the whole chapter in Deuteronomy chapter 22, you see that a girl is supposed to keep her virginity until her wedding night. You need to teach your daughter to keep her virginity, and you need to prepare your daughter for marriage. She's not supposed to go to school, go to those universities, go to those places, because those places will turn your daughter into a full-fledged prostitute. She will lose her virginity, and there's nothing you can do about that, and the Most High will require you that on the judgment day. So your son needs to learn a skill. Your son needs to learn a skill. Learn to whatever, a graphic designer, a computer repairer, car repairer, mechanic, plumbing, welding, electrician, carpentry. Let your son learn a skill so that he will start his own business and not be a slave to anyone. These college degrees will turn your children into born men and born women. They will become a slave to whoever they work for. And if that company shuts down, your children will be fired. Your children are at the mercy of whoever they work for. And that's the reason why you are having problem right now, because you have no skill. You have no skill. Those degrees you have means nothing if you don't work for anybody. If you need, your children, according to the Bible, is supposed to be educated. Your children are supposed to be educated according to God's law. Your children are supposed to be educated according to the law of God. Your children are supposed to learn how to read, how to write, and how to calculate from the Bible. And then your son is supposed to go learn a skill. So if you need help, I know that many people don't know how to do this. If you need help, contact me. Look for my contact information and contact me. If you need to pull your children out, or if your children are currently in the worldly school system, you have to pull them out. You got to pull them out. You need to pull your children out of that school system, and you need to educate your children yourself. You have to educate your children. If you need help on how to teach them how to read and write from the Bible, if you need help with any of this, feel free to contact me. Feel free to contact me. I will try to help you as much as I can. And for those of you who say, how do I keep the Sabbath and still go to school? You need to come out of that school system. You need to come out of that school system. You need to go learn a trade. You need to go learn a trade, because you are entangling yourself into a system that will trap you and keep you as a slave. When you go, it's a ridiculous and a stupid idea to go obtain a degree and go work for somebody when you can learn a skill, or when you can start your own business and have people work for you. What are you? Are you allergic to good things? Are you allergic to having people work for you? Are you so inferior? And do you have so low self-esteem that you cannot go through a route that you need to get a skill and start your own business and have people work for you? So in that way, you don't have to deal with having to take permission from somebody before you can keep the Sabbath. Because this whole system in the world right now, this so-called Western education system, the so-called Western system you see in the world right now is of Satan. And the Most High is going to destroy this Satan. According to James chapter 4 verse 4. According to James chapter 4 verse 4, it says that the friendship with the world is enmity with God. The Most High is just watching us and watching you to see what we will do. The choices that we're going to make. Are you going to continue breaking the Sabbath because you couldn't get a day off from your job? Then quit that damn job and learn a skill. Quit it and learn a skill, and make sure you prepare your children. Pull your children out of that satanic school system. If you know what these children do in those schools, If you know what they do there, you shouldn't be sending your children there. And why would you want to send your children to a school? And why would you yourself want to go to a school where they don't believe in a God that created this world? They believe that the world is billions of years old. The world created itself out of nothing. Is that where you want to send your children? Is that what the people that you want to educate your children? The people that teaches your son how to become, have sex with other men, and all this filth and abomination that goes on in that so-called school system. If you keep on participating in the worldly school system right now, if you keep on participating in their school system and doing this thing, you are making yourself an enemy of God. You need to pull out of there. You need to learn a skill. Prepare your son and your children to learn skills. So in that way, they will not have to depend on anyone. They will be able to keep the laws and the commandment of the Most High without having to take permission from anyone, and taking permission from the Europeans, and taking permission from the beast. So that's what this is all about. You have to understand that you need to untie yourself from that system. You have to. You have no choice. So that's why you're having problems, and the Most High is testing you. You must keep the Sabbath. We must keep the Sabbath by all means. So there's no excuse. There's no excuse. Well, I have to have a job. Well, I have to have a job. Well, I don't want to quit my job. I don't want to lose my job. People lost their life for the Sabbath. People lost their life. People were beheaded for refusing to disobey the law. So you think that the Most High is going to give you a pass just because you don't want to lose your job? No, you need to quit that job, and you need to find a job that will allow you to keep the Sabbath. If this means that you have to move to a different state, do it. If it means you have to find a different job, do it. Whatever you can do to keep the Sabbath, because if you look at all this information that we went through today, you see that this is very important. In Revelation chapter 14, we were warned that whoever has the mark of the beast will be destroyed. The Most High will punish you. You will not be saved. You have to keep the Sabbath according to the moon. So one of the ways that you need to one of the ways is, again, you have to be willing to make sacrifice. You have to be willing to do whatever it takes if your salvation is important to you. That's what it comes down to. So it may mean that you may have to quit your job. I'm going to quickly just give you simple and realistic things you can do right now. What do you really need a job for? You need a job so you can pay your rent, right? You need a job so you can pay rent and buy food, right? So the Sabbath is so important that you have to keep the Sabbath. You must keep the Sabbath. There's no excuse. There will not be any excuse. You must, by all means. Even if it means death, we have to keep the Sabbath. By all means. So the excuse that, oh, my job, I have to have a job, whatever, I have to feed my family, that's nonsense. That is absolute nonsense, because there are people who has been beheaded for these things. So what you need to do is that you need to find a job or a business that will allow you to keep the Sabbath. But most importantly, you need to begin to think of starting your own business. You got to start your own business. You need to learn a skill and start your own business. One of the things you can do right now, I'm going to give you information. I'm going to give you information on what you can do right now to be able to keep a job and keep the Sabbath at the same time. I'm going to give you information on what you can do right now to keep a job and have an income and still keep the Sabbath and not have to answer to anybody. So there's something called Uber. Okay? There's something called Uber. There's a lot of things that you can do right now, unlike 10 years ago. Unlike when I started keeping the Sabbath, there was not as many options that are available right now. That time, most of the time, you have to work for somebody and they have to give you a schedule, which is difficult if you want to keep the Sabbath. So try doing Uber. I know you may be thinking, well, Uber, driving people around, try doing Uber. You may actually find yourself making more money than you're making right now. You may find yourself making more money from doing that than you're making now. Uber is pretty much a transportation business. Uber is an app that you download in your phone. You download that app, you sign up, and you use your car to drive people around. People that want to go to work, people that wants to go to wherever, they will request you on their phone. They will request you, and you can transport them. You will drive them, and they'll pay you. So when you sign up with Uber, you will register your car with them. You sign up with them, and they set you up. It's really easy, very easy to sign up. You go to uber.com, or you download the app on your phone. Download the Uber driver app on your phone, and you sign up. When you sign up with Uber, you put in your car information, and they get you ready, and you begin to walk. Now, the good thing about this is that you're going to be able to drive whenever you want. You'll be able to make your own money whenever you want. You'll be able to walk whenever you want and make your own money at your own schedule. So this is the reason why I recommend this, is that this is a quick way. So let's say you want to quit your job today because of the Sabbath. You don't have to go homeless. You're not going to go homeless, because if you want to quit your job today or whatever, you can start driving Uber by next week if you sign up right now. Sign up, and sometimes it depends on where you live. If you live in a very small city, then you probably will not be able to do it there. There may not be enough people that need a ride in your city. So if you live in a big city, then that's good. If you live, let's say you live in Houston, you live in Los Angeles, you live in New York, in Chicago, Maryland, or whatever, all these big cities, you can easily do Uber there. That's why I said earlier, if you have to move, move. So this is the kind of thing that you can start doing immediately and start making money and make your own schedule. So that on the Sabbath day, you will take a day off and rest and not have to take permission from anyone. These are things that are practical that you can do. So I highly recommend Uber. Normally, I'm going to explain this. Normally, when people recommend Uber to you, they will try to give you a link to follow, right? They will try to give you a link. So I'm not gonna do that. I'm not trying to make money from this or whatever. So you can do Uber. You can also do, there are many other things you can do. There are many other things you can do. It doesn't have to be Uber. Anything you can do to be able to make your own schedule, go for it. Do it. Anything. And this should be a wake-up call for you to prepare your children so that they don't have to go through this. Because at the end of the day, on the judgment day, God will not ask you about your house. God will not ask you about your degrees, your cars, your bank account, your wealth. Those things are irrelevant on the judgment day. The Most High will judge you based on how you kept his laws. Period. That's how he's going to judge us, based on how we kept his laws. So all this materialism, all this education, all this money, all this wealth, these are just vanity upon vanity. Any intelligent, wise man or woman should focus on their salvation. And if it means you have to move to a different city, if it means you have to find another job, if it means you have to do something like Uber or whatever, do it. So in that way, you will be able to keep the Sabbath. So you have to, whatever you can, whatever you have to do, whatever you can. And if you want, you are more than welcome to contact me. If you have any question about this or you like to whatever, look for my contact information. I usually put my contact information under the video. Contact me, call me, text me, email me, Skype me. It's all up to you, So I may not respond. If you want us to communicate over text message or over email, I'm not going to be able to do it. I can only talk to you on the phone. I cannot, I don't have time to start, responding through text messages and email. It takes a lot of time, and unfortunately, I don't have time for that right at this point. So just think of other things you can do. Think of starting an online business, starting your own business online, starting your own business. Think of stuff you can do. There's so many things you can do, to be able to survive without having to depend and work for somebody. Because Satan have created the system in the world right now. Satan created this system in the world. He created this system Satan created this system in the world to basically trap people, to make it difficult for you to keep the law. Remember what it says in Job chapter 9 verse 24. Job 9:24, the earth has been given into the hands of the wicked. So all this system in the world it's like a trap. It's like a trap, and you saying, well, it's a trap. Well, I have to feed my family. When I have to keep a job, that's a nonsense. That's absolute nonsense. I don't buy your excuse, and the Most High will not buy your excuse. Why? Because you have to pay a price, and there has been those who even lost their life for stuff like this. So you need to do whatever you can by all means to reject that mark of the beast. If you are not keeping the Sabbath according to the moon, you have the mark of the beast by default. If you're worshiping on Saturday, on Sunday, you have the mark of the beast, because the Sabbath day is the mark of the Most High. Saturday and Sunday is the mark of the beast. On the Sabbath day, we're not supposed to rest. We're supposed to rest and walk on. We're not supposed to walk on the Sabbath day. We're supposed to rest. And that's exactly what Satan is trying to get you to disobey. Satan is trying to get you to walk on the Sabbath day and not rest. Can you see it? It's very clear. It's very clear. That's what the system is all about. That's the goal here. The goal here, that's the reason why they created the fake calendar, and then they came up with all this system, and they created the education system, and they put you through the education system and give you some certificate, and you become a slave, so that you get trapped into the system that you find yourself breaking the Sabbath. The goal is to get you to walk on the Sabbath day and to not rest on the Sabbath day and disobey the Most High. That's what this is all about. Your salvation depends on this. The Sabbath day is the mark of the Most High. Saturday and Sunday and not keeping the Sabbath according to the moon, these are the mark of the beast. That's what this is all about. So one company that I recommended is Uber. You can drive Uber. You can move to a bigger city or whatever, or do it in your own city. Look into it. Look into it and see how possible it is. Look for people that do it in your city. Go to YouTube and look for videos of people that are doing Uber in your city and hear what they have to say, how good it is. Whatever city you live in, go to your YouTube and try to find out if there are people in your city that are doing Uber. Look for videos of people that drive Uber in your city and hear what they have to say, how good it is, and their advice for you. This is something you can start doing, and you will start making money immediately. But like as I said, you have to do whatever you can within your power to keep the Sabbath. You must do it. There's no excuse for breaking the Sabbath. There will not be a pass. There will not be an excuse. There will not be a loophole. You must keep the Sabbath. And like as I said, look into other things you can do. You can start your own business. You can learn a skill. You can start your own business. There's so many things you can do to be able to earn a living and take care of yourself and still keep the Sabbath at the same time. Just look into it. There's so many things. I just gave you Uber as an example. There's another one called Lyft. You have Uber and you have Lyft. And then you have other companies, that you can work for or use their system to make money and work without having to receive a schedule. There are many companies like that now, and it's very convenient. So you have to do whatever you can within your power. You have to do whatever you can within your power to keep the Sabbath. There's not going to be an excuse to this. Look into different things you can do. Consider quitting your job. If your job will not allow you to keep the Sabbath, quit. If your job will not allow you to keep the law, like have your beard, have your beard. If you're a woman, cover your head and not wear a pant. If your job will not allow you to do these things, quit. Quit that job. Quit that job. If you don't have a car, you may say, well, I would love to do Uber, but I don't have a car. Well, consider renting a car. Consider renting a car. Consider getting a loan from somebody and using it to buy a car, and then use your car to do Uber and then, pay the loan back. Be creative. Think of ways you can make this thing work. You can do it if you want to. Like as I said in the beginning, there's a lot of people that talk a talk, but they don't walk the walk. There's a lot of people that like to talk about Bible and talk about God, but they're not serious. And I don't have time for people who are not serious. This information right now, I spend over an hour doing this right now for those who are serious, who truly wants to obey the Most High. Think of creative way you can make this thing work and become free from serving your fellow man. Start your own business. There are many things you can do. Begin to think about it. Even if you don't have a car and you want to do Uber, you can rent a car and do it. Or you can take a loan and buy a car. Do whatever you can. It's pretty much the point. Do whatever you can. And like as I said, if you have any question or anything, feel free to contact me. I will try to help you as much as I can. If you would like to educate your children according to the Torah, if you would like to teach your children how to read and write from the Bible and pull them out of this satanic school system that are in the world right now, if you want to do that and you need help, contact me. I will try to help you as much as I can. We're actually going to be starting a school very soon, a school for the young people, for the children to learn how to read and how to write from the Bible. And then when they get to a certain age, they will then go and learn a skill. For the boys, the girls will be prepared to get married. The girls in that school will be prepared to get married, and this school is going to be online. So it depends on when you're watching this video. That school must have started already. So if you need more information about that and you like to sign up your children, it doesn't matter where you are. It doesn't matter the country you are. All you need is just an internet access. If you would like to sign up your children in that school, contact me if you need more information about that. And it's free. It's free of charge. You don't have to pay anything. So I give our Heavenly Father all the glory. I hope that this information have been helpful to you. If you have any question or anything, feel free to contact me. I pray that the Most High will strengthen you and help you to make the right decision and understand all the information that has been given today, and that, to help you to do what you need to do to keep these laws and the commandment, because that's the only way you're going to be saved. Christ makes it very clear in Revelation chapter 22, verse 14, that those that keep the commandment are the ones who will be allowed to eat from the tree of life and will be allowed to come into the city. If you don't keep God's commandment, the Most High will destroy you. God will kill you. God will destroy you if you don't keep his commandment. You will not be allowed into the kingdom of heaven. You are doomed. You will be destroyed if you don't start keeping God's law. This is the time. This is the time you are being warned. This is a witness against you. You will not say that you were not warned. You must start keeping God's law now. If you don't keep God's law, you will be destroyed by the Most High. You will not be allowed into his coming kingdom. This is a warning to you, and this is a witness to you. I thank our Heavenly Father for everything. I hope that he will help you open your eyes and let you understand what's coming, his destruction that is coming very soon. I hope that he will strengthen you to do what you need to do. If you have any question or anything, feel free to contact me. Like as I said before, this is a witness against you. If you don't keep God's law, the Most High will destroy you. The only way you're going to be allowed into his coming kingdom is by keeping God's law and commandment, according to Revelation chapter 22, verse 14.